Hi there, and welcome to Reflections of Faith. This is Dee Dryden, and it is August 11th, and I think the time right now is 8 o'clock. I just came in from outside. I did my testimony outside, and I thought, well, I'll just do another video here while I'm waiting for that to load. It takes, the 10-minute video takes like an hour. 20-minute video takes like 2 hours, so it's going to be a while for my testimony. My updated testimony gets on YouTube and or Facebook. So again, this is Dee Dryden. This is Reflections of Faith, and I thank you for joining me. I want to talk about last night. I have been called into the Joan Hunter Ministries, and I have been studying different healers that God has used as his vessel to do miracles, signs, and wonders. And I've seen some exciting things in my life. For instance, when I was down in Rapid City a couple of years ago with a girlfriend, we had gone to the Hills Alive that they have at the park down there in Rapid City, and God had dealt with a ton of people. It must have been like, we counted at 25 people that he hit that day, that weekend, and different kinds that the first day it got hailed out, in the afternoon got hailed out, but God took us around and he pointed out to me and gave me wisdom of knowledge of who I was going to be praying for. And the next day, that's all we did was spend going around that park and getting prayer and praying for people. And it was just the emotional and mental things. We didn't really pray for anything we prayed for things that were physical, but I was more focused on the root causes, and I think God was dealing with me at that time. And I did, how you do a test, you study and study and study and you do a test. That was a miraculous passing of a test. And so I got to do, last night when I went to my evening church, I won't mention what it is just for privacy reasons, and there was a speaker there. Her name was Sarah, and she was an assistant to Heidi Baker. Those of you who know her, she's a famous missionary in Africa. She's very inspiring for those that are going into the missionary field. She has outlived a lot of things, and she's just so inspiring. And her assistant that was with her for 5 years was there, and so we had prayed. The lady that was running the whole conference came up to me and had me run her table, asked me if I would sit at her table because the lady that she had didn't show up. Her book product table a little bit before the meeting, then we'd cover it up, and then I could go sit down and watch the conference, and then right before it was over, to go back to the table to catch things. So it was kind of neat. So in that whole process, I got to pray over, God rearranged the whole universe, that people who came to that product table, I got to pray for. So he brought them to me, and in the Bible, that's what happened with Jesus. They went to him. But he made it really easy for me. So I really was, I got to see myself and evaluate how I did. And, you're your worst critic. After you pray for something, you think, oh, I should have prayed for this and I should have prayed for that. Well, it's just a learning curve. But I just felt that God it was something that I've known. I felt like I had known this all my life. I've been studying it long enough. There was no fear, and I just walked up to people, and they just walked up to me and asked for prayer. And First lady was ovarian cancer. That's a generational curse. It's also stems from the root cause is bitterness and unforgiveness. Then you cast out the spirit of cancer. You do the prions. You do electrical and magnetic frequencies. You just to be normal. You do all of this pH balance to be normal. You just cast the spirit of cancer out, and then you pray for forgiveness. When you hit that forgiveness and bitterness, you bring that out of them. They forgive the person. Then I go a little bit further, and I do a blessing. I ask them to bless specifically some things about that person, leave them at the altar. And so this particular lady had her ex-husband abused her, and she had a church that really, because she was so shy. So I prayed God's boldness and his wisdom in dealing with people, that God would give that to her. Then another little lady came along, and she had thyroid problem. She had been bleeding. There were some things that when I asked if she asked me if I could pray for her, and I said, what specifically would you like prayer for? And she said, well, God and I know. And I said, well, I can't be. We need to be specific. You need to bring it out. And I knew at that point that she was hiding something. I didn't know what. But when I had her look me in the eye, when I have these people pray for me in expectation of God going to heal them, she couldn't look me in the eye. She kept looking down. She just kept looking down, so I knew that she had something that she was hiding. And God just laid in my heart that it was some kind of sexual transmitted disease. And she was a young-looking lady, and she just didn't feel any joy in the whole 9 yards. And so I said, you need to get that out. I don't care who you confess it to, but you need to get it out, because God can't heal you with that root problem in there. Anything that you're hiding in your life, if you're hiding things emotionally or mentally and verbally, if you're hiding things, that's not from God. That's from Satan. He don't want you telling people, because it would release you. And it's a hindering force that God has a hard time healing you. And I'm not putting God in a box. He can do anything. And he has done things with people, but people that know better, especially Christians, if you're hiding things, you shouldn't. Then I prayed for a young lady, that had allergies. I also prayed for a man that wanted to be closer to God, and I gave him principles of how to do that. Before I had ever went there, God gave me words. There was going to be a man in a wheelchair that he wanted to pray over. Sure enough, there was a man that came. Half of these people weren't even from my church. They just came to see the speaker, Sarah. So I got to pray over him. He walked all over that place, and after the afterthought, I should have grew out his legs, and I didn't do that. And I didn't do that with another person that had back problems. I have to realize. So I have to go back, and if God had to grade me on that, and it was a grade that I would have to say that I got a B. A for effort, and B, you missed the back of growing out the legs, right? So anyway, God forgives. And so hopefully y'all have another chance to do that with both of them and to grow their legs out, and so people can watch that happen. God really seems to move on that, those leg growing out things. That I'm really seeing him do. Anyway, so I got the opportunity to be used and the privilege to be used by God to be able to pray for people. They came to me, which is kind of neat, because in the Bible, they came to Christ. And I used to pray for people in the church that I went to in Rapid City, South Dakota, but it's very rare that people came to me, and unless God pointed them out to me to go to them. So it's different in this church. He brought them to me, which I knew that was going to be all set up, and he most certainly did do that in a way that was awesome. So people came to me at that book table and got prayed for. I can't wait to hear the praise reports. I gave the lady who had ovarian cancer, said, give me a call, because when you go to the doctor, you're going to be healed. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew it. So we'll see how things go. And the guy in the wheelchair, I sure hope I see him again, because I want to do what Joan Hunter teaches and to grow out the legs. So before I had left, I had been praying over my apartment. And the other night, I've been praying angels to come, and I just felt that there was a presence in this place. I wasn't scared. It was just I was in the presence of God, and been dancing before the Lord and just praising him and just being in his presence for who he is. And I'm seeing that the more that I do that, the more the manifestation of these signs, miracles, and wonders follow you. And that's what the Bible says that they do. So I had this fly in this house, and I said, God, I went to go get the fly swatter to kill it, and I got distracted, and before I knew it, the fly had flown into some water and died. And I thought, that's kind of neat, because years and years ago, God had put it in my heart that Satan was like a fly. He resembled a fly. It's just pestering. That's how strong he is. He's just a pest. That's all he is, and he's not very strong. You just take a swatter and swat him. And that's the end of it. That's how he just likes to make you believe that he's bigger than he actually is. And so last night when I came home, I saw that fly dead before I left. And when I came home, there was another fly at the end of my bed, just deader than a doornail. I thought, you know what? These flies are getting in here, but they're dying on their own. That's I know he made sure I noticed that, 'cause that fly was on the end of my bed, and I didn't do it. I was like, and it was a huge fly too, and I was like, wow. You know, usually they go into windows, and they go into your windows and they can't get out, and they end up, you know, dying or something. But this was right out there in the open, and I thought, okay, something's going on here. So I want to thank you for joining me for Reflections of Faith. I wanted to share with you the amazing stuff that happened last night, so I can't wait to do a follow-up with you on the things. I'm going tomorrow at noon. I'm going with my girlfriend who to a restaurant this restaurant she doesn't like, because the owner is supposedly looking at pornographic things online, and somebody caught him, and it was in the news or I don't know what to do. And I said, what better place to go in a dark place and be a light in a dark place? I mean, that's what God has called us to do and to bless us. She's very critical, she's very criticizing, so I invited her along. God put her in my heart to invite her along. She doesn't want to go to that restaurant, but God's going to do a miracle for her and him, so he can teach her how to bless people past their sins, just like he blesses us past our sins, in the midst of it, how to handle a situation without judging. And that's what I'm sure God's going to use me to do with her tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So I'll let you know and do a video on how that worked out. Anyway, I want to thank you for joining me. For those of you who are still harboring unforgiveness and who check on my Facebook page, and you will see Joan Hunter of how to deal with the root problems. She goes into a deeper detail than I could. So 6, 7, and 8 are the root problems. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Take some time to go through all that. It will do amazing things for your marriage, your relationships. Also, Charles and Frances Hunter, her father and her mother, have some amazing videos online, and you can just get your own healing online. So, having put a plug in for that, thank you for joining me. Be blessed to be a blessing. Have a blessed week.